My name is Mia. I'm currently 9 months pregnant, and I'm about to give birth for the first time. It's a new experience. So I'm filled with anxiety, but I also feel the joy of welcoming a new family member. My husband, Henry, is a company employee, and he has weekends off. However, he hardly helps with the housework or shopping. This is because he goes back to his parents' house almost every weekend without any special reason, as his parents live close by, and he has a very good relationship with them. Since I was pregnant, I have avoided carrying heavy things, such as bags of rice, and my close friends often help me with shopping. My daily routine starts with waking up early to prepare breakfast for Henry and see him off. Then I clean, do the laundry, and go shopping when necessary. When I get home, I start preparing dinner. After all this work, I finally had some time for myself. Since entering my 3rd month of pregnancy, I have taken up blogging as a new hobby. I take pictures of my meals, the blue sky, the flowers in my garden, and write in my diary. The comments from friends and acquaintances have turned this little hobby into a small source of joy. One evening, while preparing dinner, Henry came home as usual. He threw his coat and jacket on the sofa without thinking, and I picked them up and hung them on the hook. I told him that I had made a sandwich, but he just muttered, "I'm going to take a shower," and immediately went to the bathroom. We had been married for 3 years, but his kindness and thoughtfulness were practically non-existent. Sometimes, I wondered if this was really what a couple should have, but I had also learned to accept it. When Henry returned in his pajamas, I handed him a drink. He glanced at the bar and asked, "Where's your beer?" I replied in a soft voice, "Sorry, I forgot. I'll buy it tomorrow." With a tone of obvious anger, Henry shouted, "Really? Go to the convenience store right now." I felt very upset. I said, "Why should I do that when I'm pregnant? If you want it, why don't you go buy it yourself?" He shouted back angrily, "You're the one who forgot. Fix it. Don't expect special treatment just because you're pregnant." My mother always said that exercise is important for your health. When Henry was angry, I knew it was hard to calm him down, so I reluctantly decided to go to the convenience store. When I got there, I ran into Fiona, a neighbor, and we chatted for a while. She asked me if I had forgotten anything. I explained that Henry had asked me to buy him some beer, but I had protested that he should buy it himself since I was pregnant. Fiona sympathized with me, and we parted ways at the intersection. When I got home, Henry was lying on the couch watching TV. He hadn't even bothered to clean up after dinner. He asked in an annoyed voice, "Why did it take you so long? What were you doing?" He was upset because I had been gone longer than he expected. His inconsiderate words hurt my heart, but I didn't say anything and just handed him the beer. I started cleaning up the dinner, feeling frustrated. I wanted to argue with him about how he treated me, but I didn't want to be yelled at again. So I kept quiet. Afterward, I finished dinner, took a bath, and headed to the bedroom. The next morning, Henry acted like nothing had happened. He was the type who would forget everything after he slept. But I couldn't forget his words. I consciously ignored him, and he noticed. He told me, "Stop making that face. Don't take it out on me. Be thankful I'm gonna work." I wanted to argue back and say it was him who should be the one showing gratitude. But I was so shocked and hurt that I just sighed deeply and saw him off. "Be careful. Don't worry about dinner. Just go," I said quickly as he rushed out. Afterward, I went about my usual routine, did the housework, and went shopping. Henry had said he didn't want dinner, so I decided to make something simple for myself. Later in the evening, just as I was about to eat alone, Henry came home, and I hurriedly went to the entrance to greet him. "Welcome home. But didn't you say you didn't want to eat dinner tonight?" I asked. He looked sad and said, "Oh, the dinner party was canceled. I'm so hungry. Do you have anything?" When I told him that I had only prepared a meal for myself, his face twisted in anger. He shouted, "You don't think I can come home?" I can't believe it. He walked into the dining room, saw the food I had made myself, and became even angrier. "This isn't what I call a meal. Are you doing your duty as a wife? Don't waste the money I earned." He scolded me. I quickly went to prepare something else for him. But he continued to nag. "Why don't you learn to cook like my mother?" he added, comparing me to his mother again. It hurt, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to make him any angrier. "I can't eat this. Go buy something," he said, his words making my heart sink. I thought, What do you think of me? But I didn't argue back. It was already nighttime, and I had finished cleaning. You go buy something yourself. I'm done, I muttered. But he stormed out, leaving me alone in the house. I felt a deep sense of emptiness. The next morning, I received an angry phone call from my mother-in-law. She scolded me for not preparing a proper meal for Henry. I explained what had happened, but she wouldn't accept it. I ended up apologizing and ended the call. Afterward, I felt even more down. Since Henry wasn't home, I decided to enjoy a slow, late brunch. But when I thought about him coming back that night, it felt heavy. I decided to make a special dinner for him that night. I picked out ingredients carefully and even put beer in the cart, hoping he would appreciate it. I worked a little faster than usual to shorten my blogging time and spent more time on the meal. When I set the table, it looked beautiful, like something you'd have for a special day. I felt a sense of accomplishment and thought, this will definitely make him happy. I waited for Henry to come home, sitting at the dining table. But hours passed, and there was no sign of him. I tried calling him multiple times, but there was no answer. Worry began to creep in. I thought maybe he had gone to his parents' house. So I called them, but they said he wasn't there either. I called him again and again, but he didn't pick up. By the time it was getting late, I was considering calling the police. Just then, Henry came home, stumbling. Clearly drunk. I'm home. He slurred. I rushed to help him, but he collapsed in the hallway. What happened? Are you okay? I asked, but he angrily shouted, "Shut up! Get out of the way." He stumbled toward the dining room, and when I tried to help him, he roughly shoved my hand away. "Don't touch me. Don't come near me with that ugly face of yours. I can't believe this is my wife," he said, drunkenly spitting those words at me. He fell onto the floor, and I stood there, stunned. I was hurt beyond measure. His words made me feel like he didn't even see me as family anymore. I started crying, feeling like everything I had done, including preparing this special dinner, had been in vain. Alone, I ate my dinner, wrapped in a blanket of loneliness. The next morning, Henry woke up with a hangover. He groggily said, "My head hurts. Did I sleep here last night? Why did you leave me in the hallway?" I explained. "You passed out there. I tried to help you, but you shoved me away." He was still grumpy and said, "I didn't ask you to do anything. You should have just left me alone." "Why didn't you call me last night? You could have made a meal for me," I asked. "Why didn't you pick up your phone? I called you over and over. Why didn't you answer?" He muttered. I didn't need to answer. I was in the middle of a gathering. You know, it's hard to take a call when you're in the middle of something. His words froze my heart. The more he spoke, the more my expectations of him withered. I thought, if I don't care, I won't get hurt or disappointed. That thought lingered in my mind. He said, "I'm going to stay with my parents from now on. I'm not happy with you lately, and I'm bored." His attitude made me think about divorce even more seriously. As the due date for the baby got closer, my excitement for the new life grew, even though I was still anxious. The neighbors cheered me on, saying, "It's almost here. You can do it," which made me feel a bit better. One day, Henry came home and suggested something that shocked me. "Let's go on a family trip." "A family trip?" I asked, surprised. "Yeah, my parents want to come along," he said casually. I was confused. Why would his parents be involved in a trip like this? Especially now, I knew that whenever it came to Henry, his parents were always involved, and they always blamed me for things. I immediately wondered why they would suggest such a thing, especially so close to my due date. I said, "Maybe it's a little risky. I'm about to give birth soon." Henry responded angrily, "I understand. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you're sick. My parents want to invite us, and we're going. There's no reason to make it difficult. Pack for the trip. We're leaving next week for 2 nights." I was stunned. "Next week? That's my due date." I protested, but Henry wouldn't listen. "I don't care. Get ready. We're going," he said, leaving the room without giving me any chance to argue. I thought about how to refuse. I didn't want to cause a conflict, but I didn't feel right about going on a trip when the baby could come at any moment. The next day, I managed to tell Henry I wasn't feeling well and was worried about the baby. I said, "I'll stay home and rest." But he wasn't convinced. "You can rest in the car? Come on. Let's go. We need to pack," He rushed me, and we started loading the car. Then, something happened. I felt a sudden gush of warmth at my feet. I looked down and saw water spreading around me. I realized immediately. My water broke. I told Henry, "Henry, my water broke. Take me to the hospital right now." He was shocked. "What? Really? Oh my God!" he exclaimed. But as I was still sitting in the car, wiping up the water with a towel, Henry opened the door. "Get out of the car," he said coldly. "We have to clean it." I was in complete shock. "What?" "We need to go to the hospital, not clean the car," I shouted. Then, Henry did something unimaginable. He dragged me out of the car, shooting, "I have to clean the car. This isn't my fault." The trip was planned. I couldn't believe what he was doing. I was left standing there in disbelief, feeling totally abandoned. My emotions were a whirlwind as I called an ambulance. Thankfully, Fiona, my neighbor, arrived just in time. She immediately understood the situation, arranged for a taxi, and kept me calm. Her kindness made me tear up. She stayed with me all the way to the hospital, holding my hand and offering me comfort. She also contacted my parents, who arrived at the hospital quickly, looking worried but relieved to see me safe. While I was in labor, Fiona and my parents stayed by my side, offering constant support. A few hours later, I gave birth to my baby. I was exhausted but overjoyed. And when I looked up, I saw Fiona and my parents smiling warmly at me. Their kindness and support made all the difference, and I closed my eyes in peace. After the birth, my parents stayed with me in the hospital. I woke up groggily and saw their concerned faces by my bedside. My mom gently asked, "Are you okay?" I was still so tired that I didn't have the strength to get up, but I smiled weakly. My dad had tears in his eyes, and I felt comforted by their presence. When I asked about the baby, my parents told me that the baby was being checked, but would be back soon. That's when I noticed that Fiona was no longer in the room. My mother explained. She left earlier. I couldn't help but feel immense gratitude toward Fiona. Without her, I wouldn't have known what to do. She had been my rock during the most challenging moment of my life. I told myself that after I was discharged from the hospital, I would go to Fiona's house to thank her. I promised to tell my friends when the baby was born. When I opened my phone, I received a lot of messages on my phone. Messages from Henry and missed calls. I was stunned for a moment. But after all that, I no longer had any hope or expectation for him. I immediately ignored the notifications. A friend of mine came to visit me at the hospital to congratulate me on the birth of the baby. She was really happy for me and felt like there was a moment of peace in the chaos. After a while, she asked about what happened to Henry, and I told her about the recent events. She was shocked and angry, and joked, "Maybe we should teach him a lesson." But she quickly reminded me that my health and rest were the most important things right now. She was shocked and angry, and jokingly said, "Maybe we should give him a lesson." But she quickly reminded me that my health and rest were the most important things right now. After talking for a while, my friend left. My parents found out what had happened from Fiona and asked me what I was going to do. I told them my feelings and my intention to divorce Henry. They respected my decision and promised to support me and be there for me no matter what. Meanwhile, Henry came to the hospital. He wanted to see me, but I told the medical staff that I needed to rest and did not want to see him. The next day, Fiona came back to visit me with a fruit basket. "Mia, I'm glad you're feeling better," she said with a warm smile. "But don't overdo it. Get as much rest as you can. You and the baby need to recover." Her calm words comforted me. I took the fruit basket from her, holding back my tears, and said, "I don't know what I would do without you. You've helped me so much." Fiona smiled gently and said, "It's okay because you're my best friend." I smiled and told Fiona I would come to her house to thank her when I got out of the hospital. The next day, Fiona came back to see me with a fruit basket. "Mia, I'm glad you're feeling better," she said with a warm smile. "But don't overdo it. Rest as much as you can. You and the baby need to recover." Her calm words comforted me. I took the fruit basket from her, holding back my tears, and said, "I don't know what I would do without you. You've helped me so much." Fiona smiled gently and said, "It's okay because you're my best friend." I smiled and told Fiona that I would go to her house to thank her when I was discharged. Fiona asked me why Henry had behaved like that yesterday. I told her everything. She was very angry. Fiona told me that she had told her husband about yesterday, and he was so angry about Henry's behavior that he called Henry to scold him. I could imagine Henry's situation through her words. Fiona also revealed to me that her husband, Tony, was the director of the company where Henry worked. I was quite shocked and apologized to Tony for bothering him. Fiona said, "Don't worry about this. Remember who gave Henry his current job at the company." At that time, Fiona's face looked quite angry. Now I know that Fiona is the wife of Tony, the director of the company where Henry worked. I didn't know this when I first moved to the residential area because Henry rarely took me to socialize with the neighbors, but because Fiona and I often met at the supermarket and convenience stores. We became close friends. Fiona asked me to talk to my husband many times, but I refused because I didn't want to cause him trouble. However, this incident may have pushed Fiona to the limit of her patience, which is why Henry called her so many times. Thank you so much, Fiona. I was so happy that someone was helping me that I burst into tears. Seeing my reaction, Fiona smiled warmly at me again. Mia is a dear friend. I couldn't just stand there and watch something like this happen to my friend. I was filled with smiles as we had a sincere conversation, but Henry's messages didn't stop. I deliberately ignored the number and thought about divorce, and my mind became clearer. I just wanted to think about how I would live with my child in the future. While I was lost in thought, Fiona handed me her smartphone and said, "Look at this." The screen displayed a trending post on a social media site. Facebook? When I asked her what it was, she said that someone had posted about Henry's actions on social media. She had a lot of influence on social media and had many followers. One of her posts was misleading and coincidentally included a video of me being yelled at and thrown out of a car by Henry. This person blurred my face to protect my privacy and released the video. The video quickly went viral, and even Henry's personal and company information was searched. It seemed that Henry was now facing a storm of criticism online. When I was surprised that things had come to this, Fiona chuckled and said, "I can't believe it has come to this." Henry's actions and the consequences he deserved were the result of his own choices. Furthermore, when Henry's friend asked him about this, Henry made an excuse that he had plans to travel with his parents that day and could not do anything else. This comment not only caused criticism towards Henry, but also towards his parents online, and it became a hot topic in his parents' neighborhood. With many stories going viral on social media, suddenly my phone rang, and when I looked at the screen, it was Henry's mother calling. When I told Fiona that it was Henry's mother, Fiona seemed concerned and suggested that I should answer and explain to her, but I was fed up and couldn't say a word, so I decided to ignore her. Later, I realized that my diary was full of missed calls from Henry and his mother. After the incident became a hot topic on social media, the hospital staff also learned about my situation and started supporting me. Henry and my parents-in-law, who had started to support me, came to the hospital to ask to see me and called me many times. But the hospital staff did not let them see me. As my departure date approached, there was one thing that worried me. Henry and my parents-in-law might be waiting outside the hospital. My parents reassured me that there was nothing to worry about, but I was worried that my child might be in danger. However, that worry was quickly alleviated. On the day of departure, when my parents were helping me carry my luggage, I heard Henry scream and my parents-in-law's loud voices. Suddenly, men in black suits surrounded me and formed a protective wall. While I was trying to figure out what was going on, a man gently opened the car door and said, "Don't worry. This is the director's request." Fiona had told my parents that she would come to protect me. They already knew, and my mother laughed and said, "I told you not to worry." I believed her and got into the car in a good mood. Meanwhile, Henry and my in-laws were overwhelmed by the presence of the bodyguards and couldn't get close to them. I couldn't express in words how grateful I was to Fiona for her support. All I could think about was how to repay her kindness. My parents felt the same way, and they both agreed that they had to express their gratitude to Fiona. My new life started smoothly, and the days passed peacefully. But the calls from Henry and his in-laws were incessant. I filed for divorce, but there was no sign that they would accept it. One day, his in-laws called home. My father answered the phone. They spoke arrogantly, saying that Mia was now a member of the family, and no matter how I was treated, I was not allowed to complain. When my father reacted angrily, they seemed surprised and immediately hung up. After discussing with my parents how to respond, we decided that the best thing to do was to seek professional help and consult a lawyer. Fortunately, my father knew a lawyer, so when I explained the situation to him, he was happy to take on the case. I explained in detail the video that was circulating on Facebook and the events that had happened up to that point, and asked him to handle the case on my behalf. My lawyer, Tom, called Henry. At first, he was surprised, but over time, Henry became rebellious and wanted to solve the marriage problem in his own way. Lawyer Tom calmly explained to Henry, "I am following Mia's request. Please contact me in the future. The decision to hire a lawyer or not is Mia's right." Henry did not know what to say. At first, he refused to divorce, but when the possibility of litigation was brought up, he was shaken by the two words litigation and reluctantly agreed to divorce. Henry unreasonably said that he would not take care of the child and had no intention of seeing the child, so he did not need to pay child support and he did nothing wrong in terms of property division. Lawyer Tom calmly explained the situation from a legal perspective, but Henry was still not convinced. Tom said, "Then we will meet in court." Henry's parents were nearby, and upon hearing what the lawyer said, quickly agreed and hung up. When my parents heard the lawyer's story, they were shocked and did not understand why they would marry me into such a family. I called Fiona, told her what had happened recently. Fiona laughed and said that if Henry wanted to keep the allowance for himself, then firing him was the best way to end that idea, and I was overwhelmed by Fiona's intelligence. A few days later, the lawyer contacted me and said that Henry wanted to come to apologize in person, hoping to resolve the matter. I talked to the lawyer's supervisor at his home by phone. On the day I agreed, I was with my parents and the lawyer, and the phone call was finally connected. A voice rang out from the other end of Henry's line. "Apologize to me now, and I will forgive you if you do. When you go home, we will be a couple again. My house is messy. I'm afraid I will be fired. Everyone is looking at me coldly. It's all your fault. Take responsibility." I was stunned by Henry's words. I regained my composure to respond calmly. I said, "Can't you even talk properly? You are really a useless woman." Henry replied, "Henry, don't you know I'm recording this call? I'll use it as evidence in court." "See you later," I said firmly. Henry panicked. "It's not fair. It's just a joke. I'm sorry. I love you. I can't live without you. Can we start over?" Henry begged me, but I hung up immediately. I gave the recording to my lawyer and asked if I could use it as evidence. The lawyer shook his head in disappointment and said, "He's really a hopeless man." My parents thought the same and decided to cut ties with him completely. I was more surprised than angry at Henry's actions. I was disappointed by his words, and I thought my decision was the right one. On the day of the trial, the divorce proceedings with Henry went smoothly, as did the division of assets and child support proceedings. Things began to calm down, and Fiona's husband, Tony, fired Henry, saying that it was unacceptable for someone with such low morals to continue working for the company. Henry lost his job and couldn't pay his mortgage, so he had to move back in with his parents. He lost his reputation with a viral video and couldn't find a steady job, so he seems to be making ends meet with short-term part-time jobs. Rumors have also spread to his wife's parents, and according to a neighbor friend, they seem to be living in a state of constant unrest. They face harsher social judgment than expected, and I think this feeling of oppression may be more painful for them than legal action. Most things were stable. My health also improved, so I took my parents and baby to Fiona's house to express my gratitude. Fiona and her husband were really happy. They loved the baby and welcomed the baby warmly. A long time later, Fiona introduced me to a friend of hers, Jonathan, a real estate businessman, and we had a date night at a fancy restaurant. Jonathan is a polite and elegant man. He also has a bad past. He was abandoned by his wife when he was in the most difficult period of his career. Jonathan always worked hard and made unremitting efforts to achieve the success he has today. Jonathan also knows my story. He shows sympathy on his face. After dinner, we have each other's contact information. A new beginning after all that happened. Although the decision to divorce was painful, it was a necessary step for me to find myself again. I had hoped that Henry would change, but the reality is that no one can change if they do not want to change. As for Fiona, I am extremely grateful to have a friend like her Without Fiona, I would not have been able to overcome everything. Finally, I just want to say, do not let yourself be imprisoned in despair. Find a way to stand up and live well,